Welcome to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra Mitchell Lewis, and thank you all for joining. Hope everyone is doing well. I hope your week is going well. Happy Thursday to everyone. All right, today I'll be joined by Marnie Swedberg. Marnie is the owner of Gifts of Encouragement, Inc., and a mentor to millions. She provides coaching, connections, and collaboration. Marnie successfully owned and managed businesses in the retail and restaurant industries for more than a decade and is now the author of 13 books, host of a #1 ranked and featured blog talk radio show, and also the founder and director of womenspeakers.com, which is the largest directory of its kind in the world. Marnie will join me to discuss how she's continued to glow up in every phase of her journey, and she'll also give you some tips on how you can do the same. So stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. Thanks, everyone, for joining. All right. Well, I am really excited to welcome Marnie into the podcast. Welcome.
Hi, thanks. Great to be here.
Awesome. Well, why don't you get started by telling everyone out there listening and watching who you are and what you do?
I am one of those people who refuse to niche down into one specific thing. I'm one of those people who just does like all kinds of stuff. And that's actually who I work with, is women who wear multiple hats. So I am the author of 14 books. I am an international speaker. I also host womenspeakers.com, the largest online directory of its kind in the world. I'm been married to Dave for 40 years. We have 3 awesome, amazing adult children, 2 grandkids. And so just loving life, doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Awesome. Well, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Awesome. I love that. And I love that you have a focus for women who wear multiple hats, because I think so much in our life, especially as women, we're often told that you need to not do so many things. You can't focus on everything. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you're a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And it's like, no, it's quite possible to be good at a number of things. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it really is. And I encourage gals, you may be someone who just has one specialty that you're going to focus on. And there are gals that do that, so many, but there's a lot of us who that's really not what we were created to do, what we were built to do. And if we try to do that, we'll just drive ourselves nuts.
Yeah, I know. Because every time I've told myself, especially as being like a working entrepreneur, like a lot of times I will tell myself, just because you felt like in the past, like, oh, I need to just focus on this one thing. I need to just focus on my job. Maybe I'm not supposed to be. But then there's like this calling on the inside always that is just like, no, like I gave you this purpose. I gave you this vision. So you've got to go with it. And so, yeah, I appreciate that you do focus there and that you encourage women to do that, because I like to encourage people to follow the dreams. All right. So let's dive into our topic today. So I love this topic of, obviously here at Glow Up Girl, we like to help women glow up. We like to see women elevate and continue to grow into the best versions of themselves. But I love the topic that we're going to discuss, because we talk about literally how to continue that glow up throughout your journey. So, you might be in your 20s today, but what does it look like when you're 30, 40, 50, 60? How do you continue glowing up? So let's talk about that, because I want to talk about your opinion on, how do you continue to embrace that mindset of glowing up as you get older?
I love it. It's so funny to me to think of being the older woman here, because I always think of myself as quite young. So it's great. I love this topic, and I'm glad. I've never spoken on it actually before. So thank you, Kyra, for inviting me to think through these questions today and to go forward. And yeah, I'm super excited to talk about. I'm going to turn 62 here in just a couple of weeks, and so to be in my 60s and to be super active. Still growing business ministry, still being, really involved with life and excited for the future. So I'm super excited to share this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so let's get into it. You know, what would you say that, women have to look forward to? Because I think, a lot of times, right, when you're younger, it's like, oh, I'm younger. I don't want to get old. I don't want to get older. But, how do we encourage women to embrace the mindset and continue to glow up at each age?
So I have the best news for you ever. It gets easier. Life gets easier. So always, when you think about, I like to go back to kindergarten and how tough kindergarten was to just learn those alphabet and learn
Mhm,
the 1+1, and learn your colors and all of it. It was so much to learn, and it was all
mhm,
exploring, but you were learning and you're concentrating. But in kindergarten, you would have never been expected to understand algebra or drive a car because
mhm,
you just weren't there yet, right? So
mhm,
as you proceed through your adult life, what happens is all the things that used to be so hard for you
mhm.
become easier and easier, more natural. Just like I don't ever think about adding one and one anymore. I mean, there's just, it gets
Right.
just, yeah,
Yeah.
it all gets so easier
Mhm,
and you're able to just flow more. I think one of the things I really love is I've been speaking for a couple decades for sure, probably longer. And what happens now is when I go to speak, I never get the kind of jittery bugs that I used
mhm,
to get at first. It's just so comfortable. It's so on a
mhm.
stage is just where I belong. It's home for me. When I'm
Right.
telling a story and I have a thought to add something or change something, I just roll with it and it
Mhm,
all just flows. That's kind of how that's how life actually gets.
yeah.
You get more comfortable in your skin. You get more
Mhm,
comfortable in your relationships and how you respond. You're more
mhm,
aware of what are your triggers, and you can kind of even sometimes sidestep those and
mhm,
not be triggered so often. I mean, it's just, yeah, it just gets better and better.
mhm. Yeah, I will definitely agree with you. I think for sure when as you get older, like you said, you become more comfortable in your skin and who you are.
Yeah.
You are a lot wiser, and hopefully, I would say I would hope that most people begin to just feel that when you're comfortable in your skin to just be vocal, to stand up. Because I think for myself, like when I was in my 20s, I was like running scared. Like I was just like very, very much still discovering like who I was, like who am I, and what impact can I have in this world? How can I make the world a better place? And then in my 30s, I remember like then starting to feel like, oh, okay, like I know who I am. Like, okay, I know what I was put here for. But then, like, when I got into the 40s, it was like, oh, like, boom, like it's different. And I'm not afraid. Like I speak up all the time for myself. I speak up for other people. I'm very much more direct about things, and I'm not going to let something sit anymore. I'm not. And a lot of people, you hear sometimes where people are like, oh, is it just like I'm not confrontational? I'm like, well, standing up for yourself isn't, it doesn't have to be a confrontation. It's just I would prefer for someone to be direct with me about things versus like going around the bush or being passive aggressive about things.
Absolutely. One phrase that I just said last week was, I'm not comfortable with the direction of this conversation. Can we just switch topics? You
Mm-hmm.
get more confident in actually standing up for yourself and saying,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is not a good place to be, whether it's physical,
Exactly.
emotional, relational,
Yeah.
financial, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that really does increase the joy in life, is to be able to
Mm-hmm.
actually better manage the
Mm-hmm.
situations that you're
Yeah.
in, not to be controlling, but to just recognize, no, I actually have a voice here. I actually can stand up.
Right, exactly. And I think now more so than probably like a while ago, we have more tools and more resources, more people and examples in places that can help you to, just take baby steps. Because I know it's not like easy for everyone to like say, like you said, we're in a conversation and you're, "Hey, I'm gonna stop you. I'm not comfortable with where this is going." Whereas some people would just like sort of sit in it and become stressed, become very overwhelmed by like a topic or something. So I definitely agree with you. And I think like you can just take baby steps for anyone out there listening or watching. If it's not the thing that you're like, I'm not ready to say that in a meeting just yet, but maybe find something small where you can have a voice and you can say something or stand up for yourself. Or even if, say, if it's a work related issue, you're in a meeting, something was said, you weren't comfortable. If you weren't comfortable saying something in the meeting, perhaps maybe you could speak to someone like in a leader or your manager after the meeting. But it's important to just find those small ways to like, do things.
I love that you brought up the baby step thing, because that's actually, back to kindergarten again, it's actually very incremental. Our learning, our growth, our progression. Sometimes it's a, quantum leap. I love those, but more often it's just a step or a couple steps at a time. And if I would go back and look at how I would have handled that before, originally, I would have actually just sat there and gone on with it. Right. Okay. And then at some point I would have pretended I got a phone call or something. To try to break it or point at something in the corner. Hey, I didn't even ever notice that lamp over there, try to do it, and it's just, it's that confidence to just step into into a more clearly authentic self, where you are actually honoring who you are. And in that situation that I was sharing, that conversation was going in a direction that wasn't healthy for any of us. And so it wasn't just me protecting myself. It was me actually saying, this isn't a good direction for a conversation to go. Yeah. And let's just change it. And we did. We just changed the topic and moved on, so it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I love that too, because there is a mutual respect, I believe, in those types of conversations and those moments, because sometimes and providing and giving grace to the other person, because maybe they didn't know that that was a triggering topic for you, but by you being able to say that to them, then they note that and go, oh, okay, I got it. Like that's not a path we want to go down. And I feel like it's just a lot about not only giving that person grace, but giving yourself grace. Absolutely. And just knowing that, I feel like when you come from a place that's pure and a place that is from love, and it's not meant for ill will, it's easy to see that. It's very easy to see that. And right. I think that things can go a lot smoother, when people when people come from those places. And on the other side, when that it's not meant for good, you're pretty good at, I'm pretty good at, a gift of mine is discernment. So I'm pretty good at discerning, like, no, thank you.
Right. Yeah. And we can change directions and stuff very graciously, without being rude or insensitive to the other people. But it does get easier.
Yes. Yes, it does. I second that, because it does get a lot easier. And like you mentioned, the baby steps, like it's taking those small steps, doing just this little one thing that you didn't do the last time. And exactly like you said, the me in my 20s would have just sat there too. And I would have just been on the inside. Well, the me in my 20s, I would have sat there, but I would have checked out. Like they would have been talking, but I wasn't going to be listening. My mind was going to already be gone, which honestly, that's unfair to the person that you're communicating. It's not good communication skills, and it's unfair to them. So the growth, y'all see the growth in me allows for me now to just, speak up.
And then as the conversation moves forward, then we have this amazing opportunity to go into something that is healthy, that is, nurturing to all of us, instead of like what you said, checking out. It's just so fun.
Yeah. All right. So I know that you said things pleasantly come easier as you get a little bit older, or as we mature. I like to say evolve and grow. What about for you? Can you give some examples of like other examples of, say, from your 50s to now your 60s? What's changed?
So not quite 50s, but the first book I wrote was in 1996. That book took me 2 years to write, 2 years to find a publisher and get it
Mm-hmm.
published. And it was really a big deal. It was very all consuming
Mm-hmm.
and just a huge thing. It was called Kitchen Shortcuts. It's still out there today, been revised and republished many times. So if you want Kitchen Shortcuts, grab that book. But the one I wrote last year took less than 3 months, was published and is doing well in 2023 now. It's called Spiritual Growth. So, topic change, hey, because the first one was Kitchen Shortcuts. And now we're talking
Uh-huh.
spiritual growth. So huge topic change. But this one is a fun book on how to, in the privacy of a journal, just with you and your own heart,
Mm-hmm.
explore what you're really looking for in a spiritual journey, in a spiritual guide, in a spiritual group. And nobody's telling you
Mm-hmm.
what to think. It's just like it's a workbook to go through. It's really cool. The difference in those experiences between 20 years, from the first one to the last one here, the 14th one that I wrote, amazing difference in how confident I was going into it, how the
Mm-hmm.
journey went itself, the strategies and support systems that were in place, the launch parties, all, everything was different about it from the first one. And I think that that's another thing that you're going to find is that where you have an area of expertise, as soon as I wrote that first book, Kyra, I was a published author and I became an expert then and was on TV and all that kind of stuff on
Mm-hmm.
that topic, right? You're the expert. But what I can tell you for sure is however level of expertise you have there in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or even 50s, as you continue to develop that area of expertise, you will get incredibly better at it, faster at it, more comfortable, even to the point where I train writers. So, you go from, the competence, you go from that all the way
Mm-hmm.
up to now you're leading others and you're training and you're
Mm-hmm.
sharing at the mentor level. And I feel like that's happened for me in the writing, definitely in the speaking. The
Mm-hmm.
first, few years where I was speaking, I had notes very clear. I would criticize myself heavily after every event. All of that, and now one trip that I took just right before COVID, I circumnavigated the whole globe all by myself, spoke 26 times at six conferences plus other places in 4 countries. And just went and just did it. I just did it.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference from where I started kind of whispering my messages with intimidation to now where I just stand up
Mm-hmm.
boldly and just share. And I'm so confident and it's so powerful for people. And of course, then with womenspeakers.com have gone on to train and to connect speakers with planners by the
Mm-hmm.
thousands. So all of these things, as you go forward, as long as you continue to invest in yourself, to invest in your skill sets, to
Mm-hmm.
invest in the gifts that you've been given and to develop those, it's going to surprise you actually. Like if you would have told me when I was in my 30s that I was going to be a mentor to millions, I would just have said, I don't even understand what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now to be actually living it out and to be experiencing this in such a gentle, peaceful way every day. I mean, I just get up
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like talking to God and just going, what do you want me to do today? And of course, there's things on the schedule, like our meeting today was on the schedule, but there's open spaces that I have just
Mm-hmm.
scheduled for projects or whatever. And I just talk with God about it and we do the day. And it's so peaceful and it's so beautiful and exciting. And so, yeah, just whatever it is that is in your heart, on your radar, missions that are calling your name, just go for it,
Mm-hmm.
invest yourself into them. And you will find later that you look back and go, wow, I can't even believe I'm here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. And I think something you said about, when you first started, how you would, be very critical of yourself. And I think that's something, obviously, I mean, it's definitely okay to like reflect and
Absolutely.
be better.
It's
But
how
I
you get
think
better, right?
exactly. But I think a lot of times, to your point, a lot of times, especially with women, is that like every single thing. Oh, I should have said I did. I da 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 da. And I love that when you started to, when you put yourself out there more, you start to do more of it, then you see less of those things.
Yeah.
Because like I can remember when I started this podcast in 2020, I was like cringe like every time, like for the first season was like, oh, oh God, wait, no, is that what I sound like? Oh God.
I know,
And
right, right,
I, but at the same time, I mean, continuing to do it, has helped me
right,
to become better at it and better,
right.
better with my delivery, better with my prep, better, better interviewer. And so I don't spend time anymore sitting in the like, oh, well, oh, that didn't sound good. Because number one is that I'm just like, you know what? I'm just being me. Like I show up for this podcast as Kyra and the only Kyra that I know how to be. So it's like it's
Mhm.
going to work for some, might not work for others, but I'm not going to apologize. I'm just going to be unapologetically like who I am. And now I don't beat myself up over those things, but I figure out ways and I try to figure out ways to enhance like the work that I do to bring to other people.
Yeah, so I've hosted my own radio show since 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have seen through the years, and even women speakers since 2002, what I've seen through the years is a lot of people put their toe into something,
Mm-hmm.
realize either it's just not for me, or I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times I'm just really uncomfortable with this. It was for
Mm-hmm.
them, but they didn't hang with it long enough to get
Right.
past the
Mm-hmm.
the part at the beginning. And like you said, there can be a point when it's the criticisms that we make are not helpful, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
just intimidation. But there is a part of that first stage where you listen back to every podcast,
Mm-hmm.
you listen back to every talk that you gave, you go ahead, you critique it, you
Mm-hmm.
say, I could do better. I remember the first time I was going to be on a TV show and I was so scared. And it was, of course, a cooking demo, so I had to have it just perfect. But I got my little camcorder out at the time and set up a whole mock-up thing in my living room
Mm-hmm.
and did it and recorded it. And I was so shocked to see that I was crossing my arms between everything. I would crisscross my arms in front of my body, like that
Ah,
standoffish look, I was like,
uh-huh,
I didn't even
uh-huh.
know I did that, so there are things you're going to really get help from. And
Right.
this is why it's like this. It's set up incrementally. When you're learning to drive a car, you don't just go out on a major freeway, a
Mhm.
major highway into big traffic. You don't. You
Yeah.
start on back roads and you start little and
Yeah.
you're uncomfortable and you're
Yeah.
looking all over. But after a while, you're just driving almost semi-consciously. You're doing most of the hard
Exactly.
work semi-consciously. So
Yeah.
and that's how it is with all of your stuff. So if you touched your toe to something in the past and backed out because it felt too uncomfortable, revisit that. If it's
Mhm.
still in your heart, just know that everybody starts there.
Mhm.
Everybody starts there.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And I love the driving example because yes, or you may have even started in the parking lot because I
Parking
remember.
lots, exactly. Right,
I
exactly.
remember starting in the parking lot.
Yeah,
And you know what? And even once I got my driver's license and had a car, I mean, I still made a lot of mistakes. I mean, and I
absolutely.
always said, I just had a flashback to when I was like in high school and I just got in my car and was driving. I was taking my friends, we were going to the mall, and I like was seconds away from like running into someone basically, and but stopped and was like, oh my God, I don't want to drive anymore. I don't want to drive anymore. That's what I thought to myself.
Right, right.
But I mean, it was just a moment, right? It was a moment. It was a
Hmm.
mistake. I wasn't, I knew then, like, if I'm going to drive, then I've got to pay, like, I have to be like paying attention,
Right.
my attention to detail, like, I have to be there. And so, yeah, it's just like you said, you could have just, you could walk away and say, I'm never going to drive again. And, but of course, we don't want to do that. I mean, even like during the pandemic, I mean, I didn't drive, I was home a lot. I didn't drive a lot. And I remember like the first time got back in my car and I was like, do I know how to drive? Like, do I even remember how to do this? But it comes back to you
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
naturally. Oh my gosh. I love that. I love that. I love the encouragement for people to stick with something. I know we do live in a time where it feels like people want instant gratification. Like, I want this. I want to see. I'm going to start this business today, and I want it to make me millions of dollars by the end of the year. I want to quit my job. I want to do all those things. And, any good thing takes time to develop. And I'm only saying this to you all, as you know, I'm speaking just from, all my own experiences. Now, I wasn't saying like, I want my business, it's going to make $1 million in the first 6 months. But of course, when I started the podcast part of my business, I was just thinking, like, when the first year, I was like, oh man, I wanted way more downloads than that. And like, when am I going to get those? And instead of like getting down on myself, I started to look at the positives of the people who would email me and say, like, oh, I really found this to be a value from your show. Like, keep up the good work. This is so great. And it's just finding those moments of encouragement. And if I always feel like if I just touch one person listens to this show and they're like, wow, I'm going to take action because Kyra had this guest on and they talked about this thing and this applies to me, then I think I'm doing my job.
Yeah. Can I just follow up on that for a second? Yeah. I think one of the things in our culture that the definition of success that's in the dictionary is pretty harsh for us to live with, because it is the attainment of a goal. And the problem with that, and I've known some Olympians, and the problem with that is that as you are going toward the goal, you are not a success. You get the gold medal, you are a success. You get off that platform, you have to start defending. So that's really no way to live. And the people who are the most successful in life maybe don't have the most money. They maybe don't have a gold medal. They maybe don't have whatever, but they do have peace. And they walk through life excited because they're on the journey toward what's in their heart to do. And I like to use the story. Everybody knows Jesus and his mother, Mary, right? Okay. So I like to use the story about Mary in the Bible where the angel comes to her and he says, most blessed are you among all women. And you're going to bear Jesus and he's going to be the king and the, redeemer and all that. And, nowhere in that little message to her did he mention there was going to be a cross. And when we go for big goals, big dreams, big projects, big ideas, big missions and visions, we can expect that there are going to be some things that come along the way that we weren't anticipating, that we had never known might happen to us. And most of us, just like what you were talking about, most of us really struggle with, this isn't the way I thought this was going to look. It isn't the way I thought it was going to feel. I thought it'd go faster. I thought people would really appreciate it more. I thought more people would benefit like that. But I am right there with you, Kara, that it has to be for the one. You do it for the one person. And what happens with that is, now I remember when my first book came out, one of the first interviews I was on, the interviewer said to me, so what would it take for this book to be a success from your perspective? And I said, oh, wow. If from my perspective, it already is a success because I did my whole part here. I had all that information in my mind. I took all that time to write it. I found a publisher, got published, and now we're sharing it with people. And I said that was my part. Now it just goes and does whatever it does in the world. And it is a success because I did my part. And I think that when we come back to just our part, not what we maybe hoped or dreamt, maybe Mary thought at some point she'd sit next to her king's son on earth in a palace, and that never happened. I don't know what she thought, but the reality is whatever we thought, this big dream we had at the beginning, whatever we thought, it's not going to look that way. But I'm just going to tell you that as you embrace the uniqueness of who you are and your journey, the journey you're on, and just give it your all, it will actually be better than what you anticipated. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I love that. I love that because I think people need to hear that. And I know anybody who listens to the show regularly knows that I talk a lot about, embracing your unique strengths, because there's only one you. Like, I feel like, I was made, God made Kyra, this person, these strengths, these traits, gave me these gifts, and they're only mine. There's nobody else out there. There's not a carbon copy. There's nobody like me. And he's put things into my heart that are only meant for me to, to like go after and pursue. And so it's just really important to not let other people, tell you who you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to show up, and for you to like walk in your own strengths. Like that's just so important. I mean, I just recently did a talk at work where I talked about, this, and someone once, one of the questions they asked, it was like about, from a leadership perspective, they were like, "Oh, what's the one thing? What's one risk that you took in your career?" And I was like, "Well, it's actually two. I'll tell you." I was like, "One is like not letting people put me into a box, and the second is not also as it relates to leadership, not letting people make me shy away from my style of leadership. My style of leadership is servant leadership, and it always has been. I'm always going to care more about the people than the place. And for me, it's like for me, I always tell my teams this, anybody who's ever worked for me, I'm like, look, we can do this here together. We can help you get to your dream or goal here. But if you said to me, actually, I'm working here. I like what I'm doing, but I want to go and write books. I want to be an author. Then I'm going to help you figure out how to go and write books and be an author, because no one should be limited by the situation. We should all have dreams. We should all have dreams that are bigger than where we are currently, and they should scare you. And you just need people. I mean, we just need connectors and people put in our path to help us achieve that. And so I never try to hold anybody back. I'm like, I wouldn't be doing my job. I wouldn't be a good person if I just wanted to hold my team down and say, no, you have to work here with me. No, I want you to grow. I want you to do what makes you happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things you learn, you learn those things as you go, as you go. So tell me, so what do you dislike about as you continue to grow? So, now you've entered into your 60s, in the 60s. What do you dislike? Is there anything that you look back on and you said, I could have avoided that?
Not so much for me. I think I remember the first time I got out of a car, I was in my early mid 30s, and we had been driving for a long time, and I got out of my car and I felt my body, and it kind of was like not wanting to stand up after it sat that long. And I remember thinking, oh, this is what it's going to feel like to get old, because I'd never felt that way before, right?
Yeah.
It's when you're young, you just don't notice those things. So anyway, that I think is the thing for me. There's just some bodily things that just change as you get older.
Yeah.
And there's really, you definitely, I'm on the elliptical most every morning, doing some stretches also, but, trying to eat right, all those kind of things. But basically, the only thing that really I dislike about this is just that my body is actually aging. And I remember at 50, specifically at 50, thinking, wow, I've got a lot longer in this body, because I think until you're like in your 50s, 60s, I don't know if you really notice your body too much unless there's things going wrong. But as you age, your body does shift into, especially with menopause, your body does shift into a different gear kind of. And so I'm really loving it. But also I just have to tell you that I'm one of the most healthy 61-year-olds I know. My doctor tells me that all the time, Marnie, you have really a great body, and it's really treating you well. And so I know a lot of you that are listening are younger and are like, wow, I'm just already dealing with a lot of physical struggles. And I just empathize with you. But just as you get older, the body does tend to shift into an more slow pace, and not, I'm still just going crazy. But at the same time, when I look back at what I used to do, not that crazy. It has slowed down some.
Hey, I actually really appreciate you saying that, because I think when you are younger, and especially in your 20s, you don't think about that. And you do things with your body that, like, even now, I'm in my 40s, and my body doesn't always get up as fast as I'm getting up sometimes. Like, I'm like, but wait, I work out. I work out. I lift. I walk every day. And you mean you're not getting up? you not getting up with me? So,
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's really an important message is just to begin to nurture and love on the body you have,
Yeah,
like when you're younger. And to think about how do I, because it's with you forever, and you have to start thinking about how can I take care of it today so that it'll take care of me in the future.
right. Right. And I think the avoidance of abuse of the body, and that's something that I did well when I was younger. I just never did abuse my body when I was younger. And so I really think that does help too.
Mhm.
So just a word of encouragement for those of you who are kind of in a cycle and you know it's not healthy. It's a good time. Today is a good time to start working toward making a change there because like you said,
Exactly.
and I did think at 50, even without that, I did think at 50, wow, I got a lot longer in this body. I got yeah.
Exactly. I like it. All right. So let's move into three things with Marnie. So ask you a series of questions. One is a two-parter. How do you start and end the day?
Okay, so I'm a super spiritual person. I'm not religious at all. Like, if you want to talk to somebody about being judgy or something, that's not me. But I am very connected with God, and so I had put away my clock and my watch, all my clocks and my watch in 1997. And so basically, I don't use an alarm clock at all. I just let God wake me up, and I wake up talking to him. I start with the Lord's Prayer, but I personalize it. So even before I
Mhm.
open my eyes, I'm just saying, "Good morning, Daddy." And I just go on from there. And then I get up and I get dressed in my workout clothes. And then I sit at my computer for just a few minutes and I journal. I journal a couple things on the computer and a couple things on paper. And then I take my notes outside and I run on the elliptical. And during that time, I pray for all the women around the whole world, country by country. Most every morning, I go through all the countries of the world and lift up the
Mhm.
women. There's so many people hurting around the world, and I love to do that. I
Mhm.
love to pray for people in my family and just
Mhm.
spend some time asking a couple key questions of myself before God,
Mhm.
and then also reviewing the things that were in my heart first thing in the morning. And then when I come in, I take a shower, and then when I'm getting dressed physically, I'm getting dressed spiritually. I like pick up my
Mhm.
shield of faith for the day, and tie on my
Mhm.
shoes of
Mhm.
peace and all that kind of stuff. And then I just go and get going with the day. I usually sit down and at that point say, what are we going to do today with any of
Mhm.
these open moments that I have? And so
Mhm.
I'm oftentimes just booked back to back, but a lot of times there's a set in there, a 2 hour chunk or a 4 hour chunk sometimes for a project. And there's so many things I could do every day. And I don't know what I'm going to get to do until I get to the day, unless there's
Mhm.
a deadline. So that's how I start the day. And then at the end of the day, oh, I want to do middle too, just because
Okay.
I keep a little timer next to my desk and I set it for 20
Mhm.
minutes when I'm not on interviews or on shows like this or in conferences or things. I just set it for 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes, I just check in again, just like, God, am I on the right track? Are we going the right direction?
Mhm.
It's easy to let the whole day just get away with you. You
Mhm.
start down a path and you never look up. And so I
Right.
learned that for me, 20 minutes was a great break time. And then
Yeah.
going to bed, I'm not a big screen person. So I don't watch TV. I don't really watch YouTube or anything like that very often. I watch sometimes. My husband likes to watch, so I sometimes sit with him and watch. But
Mhm.
usually screen time's done, long before I go to bed. And then as I'm going to bed, of course, I'm just talking to God again. So he kind of tucks me in every night. And I do check in
Yes.
with him each night, how the day go with us. And sometimes he just says, "Good night, sweetheart." And other times he's like, "There's a couple things we need to talk about." So I go to sleep much in peace and just love the day starts and the day ends.
Mhm. I like it. Awesome. Okay, so if you are a goal or intention setter, what's one thing you set for yourself this year? And if you don't mind sharing, where are you with that?
Mm. So I have to go back to last year in 2022. My
Mhm.
intention, my goal for the year was to say yes to God every single time.
Mhm.
And so I had always thought that I was saying yes to God every single time. But what I
Mhm.
found was that I would want to, or I would try to, or I would think I should have. but I really wasn't. And so last year I moved from wanting to getting to. I get to say yes to God every single time. This year I've added the phrase instantly and joyously. So I get to say an instant joyous yes to God every single time. And boy, Kyra, what I learned was that it is in the decision whether to do something or not that the pain comes. And this is huge. If you guys can hear me, whether it's with God or with a relationship or with a job direction or anything, the period of time that you spend going back and forth, vacillating, trying to decide what to do, that's actually painful. The longer you stay in that position, the longer your peace is shaken. And so as soon as you can get to the point where you can quickly move from, should I do this or should I do something else or shouldn't I do it like that, into I'm going to or I'm not going to, the sooner you can move into a decision, the more of your life, the more of your day is going to be peaceful. There's a lot of anxiety and tension that comes with decision making. And in our day, in our culture right now, you guys, you're making more decisions. I don't know. I mean, I've heard things like we make 1,000 times more decisions than the people in the early 1900s. They just didn't have as many choices. So now imagine the anxiety that comes with every one of those uncertainties. I have to make another decision. I have to make another decision. I have to make another decision. And what I learned this year by getting to say an instant joyous yes to God every single time is that the period of time it takes us to make a decision is really critical to how much joy we're experiencing in the day. So for me personally, because I just love God and talk to him all the time, for me, it was relating to God, but I believe that it affects every one of you listening, whether you even believe there's a God or not. Watch how long it's taking you to make decisions and shorten that period of time and just give yourself less time to make the decision. Not that you should be ridiculous about it, of course, but just see where you can shorten the time. Like, can you automate more things instead of having to make a decision every time? Can you just select a certain lunch that you're going to have pretty much every day? Can you, where can you put these habits in place that are going to really help you?
Awesome. I love that. All right. And the last question is, how do you spend a day off?
I had fun with this one because my days off are so different from each other, but I decided I would answer you if I got to do everything I loved on one day. I would do a mini retreat with God. I love to do a 1 to 4 hour mini retreat with God where I actually go somewhere that is beautiful. And I just sit with my journal and I just talk with God. I ask him questions and I listen and I just write down ideas that I have and goals and dreams and things I'm concerned about. Another thing I would do on that day is either an art project or a flower arrangement or something like that. Not weeding, but actually creating something. I would definitely clean something out, like a closet or a drawer or my purse or a file or something. And then the last thing I would do is spend some of that day calling a family or friend.
Nice. I like it. That sounds like a day well spent.
I would love to have more of those. I usually get like partial days. Like I have to mix a couple of those, 1 or 2 of those in with cleaning or gardening or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Marnie, I have so enjoyed having you on the show today. And before I let you go, I'm going to ask you one last question. And that is, can you please leave the audience? Well, actually, there's 2 things. One is, can you please give the audience 3 things you'd like for them to take away from our conversation today? And the second would be, please let everyone know how they can connect to you online.
Okay, absolutely. I'm excited to leave you with these. So number 1 is get to know the uniqueness of you. And I always say, hold up your thumb right now and look at that 1 inch of skin on your thumb. And that could acquit you of a crime in a court of law. That's how unique you are. Imagine if that 1 inch of your thumb is that unique. Imagine how unique your whole being is. The more you embrace, understand and actually step out and be truly you, the more you're going to enjoy your life. But even I can just say it isn't even selfish, because honestly, if you're not being your unique you, we need you to be. We're all looking for you to be your unique you. So step into that. Number 2 is to move on with courage and clarity. So I always say, if you've got courage, but no clarity, you're running around like a chicken with their head cut off. If you've got clarity, but no courage, you're in a fetal ball on the couch. You know what to do, but can't get up to do it. But if you put them together, courage and clarity, if you put them together, that's when you come like a laser beam, and you can really, really get stuff done and make a difference in the world. So courage and clarity. And then the third thing is to start with the end in mind. We've been talking about getting older today, and I just encourage you to take a little bit of time and think about your older self. Think about who you want to be when you're older. What kind of a grandma do you want to be? What kind of a friend do you want to be? Because what you're doing right now is sowing seeds for all of that. How you are, what you're investing in, that's what you're going to have more of later. And so just start with the end in mind. And how you can begin doing that even today is, before you go into your next meeting or sales call or whatever it is that you do, before you go in, just decide how you want to feel when you're walking out. Now, you can't make anybody do anything. It's not up to you to make other people behave in a certain way. So you can't say, I want to get this sale, and actually have that be something you can do. But you can say, when I walk out of this sales meeting, I want to know that they had all of the information that they needed. I want to feel like we had fun. We laughed together at least once or twice. We connected at a deeper level than a sales meeting usually could. And that I feel like I've left them good either which way. And if you will start going into things in your life, whether it's the holiday season or a sales call or whatever it is, if you will go in with the end in mind, that's going to radically change your outcomes.
Awesome. Love that. All right. Okay. I didn't know if we froze. Okay. So awesome. I love that. Thank you so much. So much. Lastly, tell everybody how they can connect to you.
All right. I'm so easy because it's just my name. I have this really unique name, Marnie. And if you go to marnie.com, you're just going to find everything I do. I host 9 summits virtually a year. I'd love to have you guys come and join us at some of those, whichever ones work for you. Like, we got a speaker one coming up, and then we got a family and holiday ones, which all of you could join in for, and just understand some strategies to getting more out of your relationships and your holiday season.
Awesome. And we'll also put the link to Marnie's site in the show notes, so it'll be easy for you to grab. All right. Well, Marnie, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed our chat today. And you can always come back to see us here at Glow Up Gyrl in the future.
Thanks, Kyra. Loved being here. God bless y'all.
Thank you. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Glow Up Gyrl podcast. I'm Kyra. Thanks again to Marnie for joining the show today. If you want to learn more about Marnie and the work she does, you can check out the links in our show notes. If you'd like to learn more about Glow Up Gyrl, you can visit us at glowupgyrl.com. You can check out past podcast episodes, sign up to be a guest on the show, grab our social links, and so much more. Also, be sure to check out our Career Focus podcast episodes as well. It is where I share my personal journey relating to my career experience, and also provide tips on a lot of questions that might come in from listeners who just want to figure out, how do I elevate to that next level of my career? How do I make a career transition? All of those good things. Also, if you are looking for more career and personal development tips and resources, you can join us over on Patreon. You can click the link in the show notes to subscribe. It's only $5 a month. Also, if you're on a listening platform where you can leave us a review or rate us, please feel free to do so. We love it. I love it. Thank you. Share this episode with your friends and your family, because after all, sharing is caring, as we all know. All right, so before I go, I'd like to thank you all so much for taking time out of your day and joining me. It's always a blast, and I always appreciate the support from everyone who listens, everyone who reaches out. Oh, and one last thing, if you have a guest or you have a topic or you just have any questions for me, you can reach out to me on Instagram at glowupgirl, or you can send me an email at hello@glowupgirl.com. You can also find that in the show notes as well. All right, so until next time, friends, I'll see you all next week. So stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.